I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to tell you changed my life at 72 years old, and it all started with a single emoji, a green thumbs up. My daughter-in-law sent it in our family group chat. But she wasn't congratulating me. She was celebrating my exclusion from the family. She had no idea that one emoji would cost them everything I'd given them for 15 years. $243,000 to be exact. Let me tell you how a 72-year-old woman who gave everything ended up being kicked out of her own family with 16 words and an emoji. And how that same woman decided enough was enough. The screenshot arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding laundry in my small apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. The autumn sun streamed through the window, warming my hands. At 72, my fingers don't work as well as they used to. Arthritis, the doctor said. But I manage. My phone buzzed. A message from Mia. I smiled. My daughter doesn't text often anymore, not unless she needs something. But I tried not to think about that. I tried to focus on the good memories. The little girl who used to climb into my lap. The teenager who told me I was her hero. I opened the message. It was a screenshot, a family group chat I didn't recognize. The header read Family Circle with a little heart emoji. I wasn't in this group. My stomach dropped. Jack's message sat at the top, time-stamped from 2 hours ago. We think it's better for Mom to step back for now. We need space as a family to heal. Below it, a single reaction. A bright green thumbs-up emoji. From Jennifer, my daughter-in-law. I stared at that green thumb. It glowed on my screen like a tiny celebration, like a victory, like she'd finally won something she'd been fighting for. 30 seconds later, another text from Mia popped up. Mom, sorry that wasn't for you. Please forget it. Forget it. As if I could erase the image of my own children throwing me out of their lives. As if that green thumb wasn't burned into my vision. As if those 16 words didn't confirm what I'd been afraid to admit for years. To them, I wasn't a mother. I was a service. An ATM with feelings. And they'd just canceled their subscription. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the phone down on the kitchen counter. I gripped the edge of the laminate surface, the same counter I'd eaten breakfast at alone for the past 9 years, since my husband Robert died. The phone buzzed again, and again, and again. I didn't look. Instead, I walked to the window and stared out at the parking lot of my apartment complex. A child was riding a bike in circles. His mother watched from a bench, smiling. The ordinary happiness of their afternoon felt like it belonged to a different universe. How did I get here? The question echoed in my mind, but I already knew the answer. I'd gotten here one yes at a time, one opened wallet at a time, one sacrifice at a time. For 15 years, I'd been the solution to every problem, the safety net that never said no, the bank account that never closed. And now, after all of it, I was the problem that needed to step back. I looked down at my phone again. The screenshot was still there, the green thumb still glowing. Something cold settled into my chest. Not sadness, not even anger, just clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally see the truth you've been avoiding. They wanted space, I'd give them space. But the space would be real, complete, without my money, without my help, without my presence as their personal ATM. They were going to have all the space in the world, and I was going to have my life back. Mom, I want you to meet someone. Jack stood in my doorway, his eyes shining the way they used to when he was 10 years old, and brought home a perfect test score. He was 30 then, a financial analyst at a good firm, making decent money, living his own life. I was 57, 3 years widowed, still learning how to sleep alone in a king-sized bed that felt like an ocean. Come in, sweetheart, I said, wiping my hands on my apron. I'd been making pot roast, Robert's favorite. I still made it sometimes even though he wasn't there to eat it. Jack stepped aside and she walked in. Jennifer. She was beautiful. Blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, a smile that seemed warm enough to melt ice. Mrs. Morrison, she said, extending her hand. I've heard so much about you. Victoria, please, I said, taking her hand. It was soft, manicured. And I've heard absolutely nothing about you, which means Jack has been keeping secrets. Jennifer laughed. It sounded genuine, musical. She leaned into Jack's shoulder. He wanted to make sure I was special before introducing me to the most important woman in his life. My heart melted right there in the doorway. "Mom," Jack said, his voice soft with emotion. "She's the one." And I believed him. 6 months later, I wrote the first check. We were at a bridal boutique in Scottsdale. Jennifer stood on a raised platform draped in ivory lace that cascaded to the floor in perfect waves. The dress cost $3,000. "Mom," Victoria, Jennifer said, turning to me with tears in her eyes. "My parents can't help with the wedding. They just don't have the means. And Jack and I are trying to save for a house." She didn't have to finish. I saw it in her eyes. The hope, the vulnerability, the unspoken question. "It's beautiful," I said. "You'll be a stunning bride." "But the price is perfect," I interrupted. "Consider it my gift. Every mother dreams of seeing her daughter in the perfect wedding dress." Jennifer stepped down from the platform and hugged me. Hard. She smelled like expensive perfume and possibility. "You're the mother I never had," she whispered. I cried happy tears that day. I thought I'd gained a daughter. I didn't know I'd signed a lifetime contract as the family bank. The wedding was beautiful. I paid for the flowers. Ivory roses and pale pink peonies arranged in cascading centerpieces at each table. $4,000. I paid for the venue. A country club overlooking Camelback Mountain with a view that took your breath away. $8,000 for the day rental. I paid for half the catering. Filet mignon and Chilean sea bass for 150 guests. $6,500. "Jack's parents can contribute so much," my sister Margaret said at the reception, watching Jennifer dance in her $3,000 dress. Jennifer's family didn't put in a penny. "They don't have it," I said, defending them, defending Jennifer. "We do. That's what family does. We help each other." Margaret looked at me with something like pity in her eyes. "Just don't lose yourself in the helping, Victoria." I smiled and changed the subject. Margaret didn't understand. She'd never had children. She didn't know the joy of giving to your kids, of seeing them happy, of being the reason they could have their dream day. Total wedding costs. I covered $23,500. I told myself it was worth it. An investment in their happiness, in my future grandchildren. I told myself it was normal. 1 year later, the house. Jack called me on a Sunday morning. I was reading the newspaper, drinking coffee, watching the Arizona sun paint my small living room gold. "Mom, we found it. The perfect house." His voice carried the same excitement as when he'd introduced me to Jennifer. Pure, childlike, impossible to resist. "That's wonderful, honey. It's an anthem. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. A backyard big enough for kids to play. Mom, it's everything we've dreamed of." I could hear Jennifer in the background squealing with excitement. "The only problem is the down payment," Jack continued. His voice shifted. Less excited, more cautious. "The bank wants 20%. We just don't have it. Not with Jennifer pregnant and all the baby expenses coming." My hand tightened on my coffee mug. I'd just sold the condo Robert and I had bought when we were young. Our first home together. The place where we'd raised Jack and Mia. The walls still held echoes of birthday parties and Christmas mornings. The sale had netted me $40,000, my entire retirement safety net. The money that was supposed to carry me through old age, through medical bills, through whatever emergencies life threw at me. "How much do you need?" I heard myself ask. $40,000. The exact amount sitting in my savings account. Jack must have heard my hesitation because he rushed on. "We'll pay you back, Mom, as soon as we're on our feet. I promise. This is just to get us started." "What about Jennifer's family? Can they help?" A long pause. "Her parents are struggling themselves. They can't contribute." In the background, I heard Jennifer, "Tell her about the baby Jack. Tell her it's her first grandchild." The baby, my first grandchild. How could I say no to that? How could I prioritize my own security over a roof for my unborn grandchild? "Let me make some calls," I said. "I'll see what I can do." I didn't need to make calls. I knew I'd give them the money. I'd known the moment he said perfect house in that voice full of hope. 2 days later, I transferred $40,000 to Jack's account. Jennifer sent me a text with a photo of the house. A beautiful 2-story with a red-tiled roof and a 2-car garage. The message read, "You're an angel, Mom Victoria. I don't know what we'd do without you." I felt good, useful, needed. I didn't know I'd just bought my own ticket to 15 years of financial servitude. 2 months later, Jack called again. Mom, we have a problem. I was at my desk doing accounting work for one of my freelance clients. I'd worked as a freelance accountant since retiring from my full-time position at 60. The work was steady. The pay was decent. It kept me comfortable. What's wrong? The mortgage is higher than we thought. With the baby coming and all the expenses, we can't make the payments. Could you help us just for the first few months, just until Jennifer goes back to work after Emma is born? Emma. They'd already named her. My granddaughter. How much do you need? $1,200 a month, just temporarily. $1,200, on top of my rent, my utilities, my car payment, my health insurance. It would be tight, but I could manage. Just for the first few months, I repeated. Just the first few months, Mom. The first few months turned into 5 years. 60 months of $1,200. $72,000. Every month I'd log into my bank account and set up the transfer. Every month I'd watch that $1,200 disappear from my balance. Every month I'd tell myself next month they'll get back on their feet. Next month they won't need my help. Next month never came, and I never stopped sending the money. By year 3, the monthly requests had evolved. Mom, Emma's daycare is so expensive. Could you help with $500 a month? Mom, the car broke down. We need $2,000 for repairs. Mom, Jennifer's sister is getting married. We can't show up empty-handed. Could you help with a gift? Every request came with the same tone, gentle, apologetic, laced with the implication that this was the last time, that things would get better, that they just needed to get over this one hurdle. I said yes every time. I worked longer hours, took on more clients, cut my own expenses, rationed my blood pressure medication because I had to choose between a full prescription and paying my electric bill. I told myself this was what mothers did. Sacrifice, give, support, even when no one was supporting them. Then came Mia, my daughter, my baby girl. She'd married David when she was 30. He was a software developer. Nice enough, quiet, ambitious. They bought a townhouse in Tempe. Mom, Mia said over coffee one afternoon, our kitchen is from the 80s. Everything's falling apart. We got a quote for a remodel, $3,000. I know it's a lot, but I'll help, I said before she could finish. Her face lit up. Really? Oh, Mom, you're the best. We'll pay you back. They never did. 6 months later, Mom, David wants to take a coding boot camp. It's $2,500, but it could double his salary. It's an investment in our future. I wrote the check. A year later, Mom, these kids need tutoring. The public schools here just aren't cutting it. $500 a month. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. $500 a month. Another $6,000 a year. I added it to my monthly budget spreadsheet. The numbers climbed higher and higher. A mountain of money flowing out of my accounts and into theirs. By year 5, I was transferring $2,500 a month to Jack and Jennifer. $2,500 to Mia and David. $5,000 total, every single month. $60,000 a year. I'd calculated it once late at night, unable to sleep. In 5 years, I'd given them $300,000. Not counting the wedding, the down payment, the one-time emergencies. $300,000 that could have been my retirement, my security, my health care in old age. Instead, it was their mortgage payments, their kitchen remodel, their vacation to Hawaii that I saw photos of on Facebook while I was eating ramen noodles for dinner because I'd overspent on their expenses that month. But it wasn't just the money. It was the visits that never happened. Mom, we'd love to have you over, but Emma has a cold. Mom, the house is such a mess. Let's wait until next month. Mom, we have plans this weekend. Maybe another time. Every excuse was reasonable. Every cancellation came with an apology. But the pattern was clear. I was welcome when they needed something, when they wanted money or free babysitting or help moving furniture. But when I just wanted to see my grandchildren, when I just wanted to share a meal with my family, there was always a reason it wasn't a good time. 5 years in, I looked at myself in the mirror. I'd turned 62. Medicare was still 3 years away. My savings account had dwindled to almost nothing. The wrinkles around my eyes had deepened. My hair had gone completely gray. I looked tired. No, I looked exhausted, used up, worn out, like a resource that had been mined until there was nothing left. When was the last time someone had asked me how I was? When was the last time I'd received a hug that wasn't followed by a request? When did I stop being Victoria and become just Mom the ATM? I didn't know. But standing there in my small bathroom, staring at my reflection, I knew something had to change. I just didn't know how to change it. Not yet. July. Phoenix heat turned the city into an oven. I'd invited everyone to my apartment for Sunday dinner. The whole family. Jack and Jennifer and their 2 kids, Mia and David and their 3 children. It took me all day to prepare. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, apple pie from scratch using Robert's mother's recipe. The apartment was small. The air conditioning struggled against the Arizona heat. But I'd set the table with my good dishes, the ones I'd gotten as wedding gifts 40 years ago. White china with delicate blue flowers around the rim. They arrived at 6. Jennifer walked in wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a Michael Kors purse. She kissed my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark. Something smells amazing, Mom Victoria. Jack carried Emma, who was 5 now. A beautiful little girl with blonde curls. She didn't run to hug me. She stayed in her father's arms, looking at me like I was a stranger. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, reaching out to touch her hand. Emma pulled away. "She's shy today," Jennifer said quickly. "Too much sun at the pool." Mia arrived next with David and the kids. Hugs all around, but quick. Distracted. The kids immediately gravitated to their tablets. We sat down to eat. The pot roast was perfect. Tender and falling apart. The potatoes were creamy. The pie smelled like cinnamon and childhood memories. But the conversation was strained. Jack talked about work. Jennifer scrolled through her phone. Mia checked her watch 3 times in 15 minutes. I waited for someone to ask me a question, to notice the new painting I'd hung on the wall, to comment on the effort I'd put into the meal. No one did. Finally, after dessert, I poured wine for the adults, took a deep breath, gripped the stem of my glass. "Kids," I said softly, "I need to talk to you about something important." Everyone looked up. Jack raised an eyebrow. Jennifer set down her fork halfway to her mouth. "I think it's time for you to start becoming more financially independent." The silence was instant and brutal, as if I'd confessed to a crime. "You both have good jobs." I continued, my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. "You've been stable for years. Maybe it's time for me to take a step back." Jack set his wine glass down with a thud. "What does that mean, Mom?" His tone was cold, accusatory, like I'd betrayed him. "It means I need to think about my future, too," I replied. "I'm 67 years old. I'm not going to work forever. And you're not children anymore. You can handle this on your own." Jennifer let out a short, bitter laugh. "So now you're tired of helping us, after everything we've done for you." I froze. Everything they'd done for me, what had they ever done except take and take and take, Jennifer? Jack started. "No," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "This is ridiculous, Jack. We count on her. We have expenses, obligations. She can't just cut us off like this." "I didn't say I'd cut you off," I explained carefully. "I'm just saying we need to make a plan for you to become self-sufficient." Mia jumped in, her voice tight with emotion. "Mom, you can't do this. We have bills. The kids' tutoring costs $500 a month. David's student loans." "Count on me," I repeated the phrase that had been bothering me. "You count on me, like I'm a utility, a service." David shook his head. "This is very selfish of you, Victoria." Selfish. That word landed like a stone in my stomach. 15 years of giving everything, sacrificing everything, $300,000. And now I was selfish for wanting to breathe. Jack stood up from the table. His face was red. His jaw was tight. "I think you're changing, Mom. You're not the same person you used to be." Jennifer nodded vigorously. "It's true. You're becoming bitter, negative. It's not healthy. Not healthy. For whom? Not healthy for them, certainly. Not healthy for the people who'd built their lives on my bank account." The dinner ended early. They left without helping clean up, without a proper goodbye. Just quick hugs and tight smiles and attention that hung in the air like smoke. I stood alone in my small apartment, surrounded by dirty dishes and the ruins of a meal I'd spent all day preparing. The pot roast sat half-eaten. The pie had barely been touched. I'd given them everything, and they'd left me with nothing, not even gratitude. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slow circles. The Arizona heat pressed down like a weight. Had I done something wrong? Was I being selfish? Was it my duty as a mother to keep giving until I was completely empty? My phone sat on the nightstand. Silent, no calls, no texts checking if I was okay, just silence. The next morning I tried to call Jack, straight to voicemail. I texted Mia, "Honey, can we talk?" Her response came 3 hours later. "Busy, Mom, talk later." Cold, distant, like I was a nuisance. Like asking for a little consideration had turned me into the enemy. 1 week after the dinner, Jennifer called. "Mom Victoria, we need to talk." Her voice was serious, formal, like she was calling about a business matter, not a family relationship. "Of course," I said, my heart already sinking. "Tell me what's on your mind." "Jack and I have been talking. We think you've been very negative lately. Your comments about money made us feel bad, like everything you did for us was a burden." "Jennifer, I never said that. I just asked that we think about the future." She sighed. That condescending sigh people use when they think they're right and you're too stupid to understand. "The problem is your energy, Mom Victoria. It's affecting the kids. They feel it. We feel it. We don't want that negativity around our family." My hand tightened on the phone. Negativity. Toxic energy. Those modern words people use to label anyone who's inconvenient. Anyone who dares to have needs of their own. "Are you saying you don't want me around?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm saying we need space. We need to protect our family from negative influences." I hung up. My hands were shaking. My vision was blurred with tears. I who had given 15 years of my life. I who had sacrificed my savings, my dreams, my peace of mind. Now I was the toxic one, the negative one, the one who wasn't wanted. 2 days later, Mia invited me for coffee. I arrived at the Starbucks near her house, hopeful. Maybe this was a peace offering. Maybe she'd listened. Maybe she understood. She was already sitting at a table, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up when I sat down. "Hi, honey," I said. She nodded. Barely. We ordered coffee. She stayed on her phone, texting, ignoring me. "Mia, is everything okay?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were hard, distant. "Mom, Jack told me what you said. And honestly, I find it unbelievable. After everything we've done for you." There it was again, that phrase. "What have you done for me?" I asked. I needed to know. I needed to understand what part of this equation I was missing. Mia frowned. "Mom, we give you company. We visit you. We include you in our lives. Isn't that enough? Company, visits, inclusion. As if they were favors. As if allowing me to exist in their orbit was a gift I should be grateful for on my knees." "Honey, I didn't ask to be a burden. I just asked you to be a little more independent." She shook her head. "It's not about independence, Mom. It's about you changing. You're becoming difficult, egotistical. And frankly, I don't know if we want that version of you in our lives." I stood up from the table. I didn't drink my coffee. Didn't say another word. I walked out with what dignity I had left, got in my car, closed the door, and there alone in the parking lot of a Tempe Starbucks, I cried like I hadn't cried since Robert died. I cried for the lost years, for the money that would never come back, for the love I'd given without measure that was now being held against me like a debt. I cried because I finally understood something. To them, I was never a mother. I was a resource, a solution, a bank account with feelings. And now that I'd dared to set a boundary, I'd become the problem. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking, calculating, remembering every transfer, every sacrifice, every time I'd said yes when I wanted to scream no. Something inside me hardened, like cooling metal, like cement drying in the desert sun. I no longer felt sadness. I felt clarity, cold, perfect, absolute clarity. They had used me for 15 years, and now that I'd dared to set a boundary, I'd become the villain in their story. Well, if I was going to be the villain anyway, I might as well play the part. I got out of bed at 2 a.m, opened my laptop, logged into my online banking. There they were. The automatic transfers, regular as clockwork. $1,200 to Jack, first of every month, for the mortgage on a house I didn't live in, a house where I was barely welcome. $2,500 to Jack, 15th of every month, for expenses. $2,500 to Mia, 15th of every month, for necessities. I opened a spreadsheet, started calculating. 15 years, 180 months. The wedding, $23,500. The down payment, $40,000. The mortgage, $1,200 times 60 months, equals $72,000. Monthly transfers to Jack, $2,500 times 156 months, equals $390,000. Monthly transfers to Mia, $2,500 times 96 months, equals $240,000. Extras. Emergencies. One-time requests. Birthdays. Christmases. At least $37,000 more. I leaned back in my chair. Total $802,500. $802,500. I stared at that number. Let it sink in. Let it burn into my brain. That was my retirement. My security, my health care, my future. Gone. Given to children who called me toxic when I asked them to stand on their own feet. I took a deep breath, made a decision. If they wanted space, they would get it. Real space. Complete space. Without my money. Without my help. Without my presence as their personal ATM. The next morning, I called the bank. "Good morning, I need to cancel some automatic transfers." The operator was polite, efficient, professional. "Which transfers would you like to cancel, ma'am?" "All of them." A pause. "All of your automatic transfers." "Yes." 10 minutes later, it was done. Jack's mortgage payment canceled. Jack's monthly transfer canceled. Mia's monthly transfer canceled. Every single automatic payment that flowed from my account to theirs stopped. Next, I called the mortgage company. "I'm a co-signer on a loan. I need to be removed." They explained the process. It wasn't immediate. It required paperwork. Jack would have to refinance on his own. "Start the process," I said. "Send me the documents." Then the credit cards. Years ago, I'd added Jack and Mia as authorized users on my credit card. For emergencies, I'd said. Those cards got used every month. Restaurants, clothes, gas, things that were definitely not emergencies. "I want to cancel the authorized user cards on my account," I told the bank representative. "Both of them. Both of them." Click, click, done. Finally, the joint account. I had a joint savings account with Jack. We'd opened it when he bought the house. "Just in case you need quick access to funds, Mom," he'd said. But the reality was that he had access to my money. Always. Without asking. Without permission. I closed that account. Transferred everything to a new one. In my name only. Under my control only. I did all of this in silence. Without warning. Without drama. Without emotion. With the same coldness they'd used to push me away. If they wanted to treat me like a service, they would learn that services could be canceled. And that day I canceled my subscription to being used. 3 days passed. Quiet. Silent. Strange. I felt light. As if I'd taken off a heavy coat I'd been wearing so long I'd forgotten what it was like to walk without it. I drank tea in the mornings without rushing. Read a book I'd been meaning to read for 2 years. Walked in the park, alone in peace, not waiting for desperate calls, not on high alert for the next manufactured crisis. And then the message came. The screenshot. The family group chat. The one I wasn't in. Jack's words. "We think it's better for Mom to step back for now." Jennifer's green thumbs up. I stared at that emoji. Read the message over and over, looking for something. A doubt. A crack. A sign that someone had said no. That someone had defended me. But there was nothing. Only complicit silence. Only that green thumb shining in my face like a final insult. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I didn't think. I just wrote. Opened the original family group chat. The one I was still in. Typed my message. Understood. I will respect that and step back from paying the house mortgage and the $5,000 monthly transfers. I hit send. The silence that followed was absolute. I could picture them. Jack staring at his phone, eyes wide. Jennifer holding her breath. Mia rereading the message, trying to understand if it was real. David asking what was happening. All of them in shock. Because none of them thought I would have the courage. None of them believed that sweet Mom Victoria could bite back. But I just had. And the bite was deep. I turned off my phone, left it on the table face down. I didn't want to see the replies. Not yet. I needed this moment. This silence. This calm before the storm I knew was coming. I poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did, sat in the armchair by the window, the same one Robert used to sit in every Sunday to read the paper. For the first time in 15 years, I felt something like freedom. Heavy, painful, but real. The glass trembled in my hand, not from fear, from adrenaline, from power, from the feeling of having reclaimed something I thought was lost forever. My voice. For so many years I'd spoken in whispers, apologizing for existing, for needing, for wanting something for myself. And now I had shouted, in silence. With 19 words that were worth more than $800,000, I had shouted, I matter too, I exist too, and my existence is not reduced to what I can give. I looked at the dark phone on the table. I knew what was coming. The calls, the messages, the pleas, the accusations. But for now, in this perfect instant, there was only silence, and the silence was mine. I finished the wine slowly, savored every sip, savored every second of this new version of myself I was just getting to know. A 72-year-old woman who had finally learned that her worth wasn't measured in dollars given. It was measured in dignity kept. 2 hours after I sent that message, I turned my phone back on. The screen lit up like a fireworks display. 23 missed calls, 42 text messages, 7 voicemails, all from Jack, from Jennifer, from Mia, from David, even one from Amy Jennifer's sister who had never contacted me before in her life. All of them wanting to explain, all of them wanting to fix it, all of them panicking because the money faucet had been turned off. I sat on my couch with a cup of chamomile tea and started reading. Jack. Mom, I need you to call me. This is a misunderstanding. Please. Jack. Mom, call me. Jack. You can't just do this without talking to us first. Jennifer. Mom, Victoria, you can't do this. We have obligations, a mortgage. You can't just leave us high and dry like this. Jennifer. I don't understand why you're being so cruel. Jennifer. Jack is having a panic attack. Is this what you wanted? Mia, Mom, please understand that message was a mistake. It wasn't meant to be seen like that. We love you. Mia. You're overreacting. Can we please talk about this like adults? David, Victoria, this is very impulsive. You need to think this through. We have 3 kids depending on that money. Amy Jennifer's sister. Mrs. Morrison, I don't know what's going on, but Jennifer is really upset. Can you please call her? I read every message slowly, carefully, looking for one specific thing. An apology. A, we're sorry we hurt you. A, we didn't mean to make you feel unwanted. A, how are you feeling, Mom? There wasn't one. Not a single message asked how I felt. Not one acknowledged the pain they'd caused me. Only panic, only fear, only the desperation of people watching their comfortable lives crumble. And something inside me, something that had still been holding out hope, finally died. Like a candle burning out in a dark room. There was no turning back now. I took a deep breath and typed a single message to the original family group chat. It is not impulsive. It is a well-thought-out decision. You asked for space. I am giving it to you. But real space includes financial independence. I wish you the best. No emojis, no exclamation points, no drama, just facts. Cold, clear, non-negotiable. I hit send. The phone started ringing immediately. Jack's name flashed across the screen. I declined the call. It rang again. Jennifer this time. Declined. Mia. Declined. David. Declined. Jack again. Declined. Every rejected call was an act of self-love. Every silence I chose was a declaration of dignity. I was not going to give explanations. I was not going to justify myself. I was not going to beg for a place in their lives. If they wanted me out, I would be out, but on my own terms. That night I expected not to be able to sleep. Expected guilt, remorse, second thoughts. None of it came. Just a deep exhaustion. The kind that comes after carrying something heavy for too long and finally letting it go. I slept for 10 hours straight. The deepest sleep I'd had since before Jack was born. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through my bedroom window. It was 8 in the morning. The Arizona sky was impossibly blue. I stretched in bed. My body ached less. My mind felt clear, bright. I checked my phone. 57 new messages, 13 more calls. even a 20-minute voice message from Jack. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I went to the kitchen, made coffee and toast with butter, sat by the window and ate breakfast alone. Quiet, peaceful, whole. The phone kept ringing all day, but I had discovered something wonderful, the silence button. Every time it vibrated, I went on with my life. I watered my plants, cleaned the apartment, organized my closet, found clothes I hadn't worn in years because I'd always been too tired, too worried, too busy solving other people's crises. I tried on a coral-colored dress I'd bought 3 years ago and never worn. It fit perfectly. I looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I liked what I saw. By the 3rd day, the messages changed their tone. The panic was gone. Now came the manipulation. Jack, Mom, the kids are asking about you. Emma wants to know why Grandma doesn't love her anymore. Mia, I can't believe you're doing this to us right when David is going through a tough time at work. His company is downsizing. We might lose our house. Jennifer, she sent a photo. Emma and her younger brother Tommy holding a sign that read, "We miss you, Grandma." The text below, they don't understand why their grandmother abandoned them. Every message was a hook. Every word calculated to make me feel guilty, to make me come back, to make me open my wallet again. But something had changed in me. I could see the strings now, the invisible threads they'd always used to move me like a puppet. And now that I saw them, they no longer worked. I read each message with distance, with coldness, as if they were addressed to someone else. Because in a way they were. Those messages were looking for the old Victoria, the one who gave in, the one who blamed herself, the one who always came back. But that Victoria was gone, and in her place someone new had been born, someone stronger, someone who had finally learned that love is not measured in transferred dollars. On the 4th day, my sister Margaret called. I answered. With her, it had always been different. "Victoria, what on earth is going on?" she asked. No judgment in her voice, just genuine curiosity. I told her everything. From the beginning, every transfer, every sacrifice, every humiliation, the group chat message, the green thumb, my reply, my decision. She listened in silence. When I finished, there was a long pause. "You know what I think," she said finally. "Tell me." "I think it took you 15 years too long to do the right thing." Her words hit me with unexpected force, because she was right. 15 years of being an emotional ATM. 15 years of believing that giving until I was empty was love. 15 years of confusing sacrifice with self-worth. "Victoria, listen to me," Margaret continued. "What you did was not cruelty. It was justice. And if they can't see that it's because they never saw you, they only saw what you could give them." We talked for an hour, about family, about boundaries, about how women of our generation were trained to disappear into service. When we hung up, I was crying, but not from sadness, from relief, from validation, from the confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the monster they wanted to paint me as. That night I sat down with all my bank statements from the past 15 years. I'd saved them, all of them, every transfer, every payment, every receipt. I printed them out, organized them by year, by child, by category. When I finished, I had a stack of papers 8 inches high, 8 inches of evidence, of sacrifice, of unrequited love. I looked at them and felt something strange. Not pride, not shame. Clarity. The clarity of seeing your life summarized in numbers, of understanding exactly what you were worth to others in monetary terms. I took a gray folder from my desk drawer, put all the documents inside, organized them with tabs. Jack, Mia, shared expenses, extras, all perfectly documented, as if I were preparing a legal case. And in a way I was, not for a judge, but for myself. To have tangible proof that I was not exaggerating, that it was not my imagination, that I really had given everything, and they really had taken it without a second thought. On the 5th day, someone rang my doorbell. It was 10 in the morning. I was having coffee on my small balcony reading a novel I'd bought months ago, but never had time to start. The doorbell rang again, insistent, 3 times, 4, 5. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Jack. He was alone. No Jennifer. no kids. Just him, hands shoved in his pockets, looking at his feet. He had the same expression he used to get as a child when he'd broken something and was trying to fix it before I found out. I took a deep breath and opened the door. We looked at each other. The silence between us weighed 1,000 pounds. "Mom," he said. His voice sounded tired, defeated. "We have to talk." "Come in," I replied. I didn't hug him, didn't offer him coffee, just let him pass. We sat in the living room, him on the couch, me in the chair opposite, like two strangers negotiating, like two people who were once everything to each other and now barely recognized one another. "Mom, this has gotten out of control," he began. "We didn't mean to hurt you. That message was a mistake. Jennifer was upset. I was frustrated. But we didn't mean it." I looked him in the eyes. Those eyes that were the first thing I saw when he was born. That had looked at me with adoration when he was a boy. That had stopped seeing me at some point I couldn't pinpoint. "You didn't mean it," I repeated softly. "Jack, you kicked me out of a family group chat. You told me to step back. Your wife celebrated it with an emoji. What part of that did you not mean?" He shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "It's just, you started all this with that talk about not helping us anymore. You made us feel like we were a burden to you." There it was, the perfect reversal. The victim turned into the villain. I leaned forward. "Jack," I said, my voice calm but firm, "in 15 years, I have given you over $800,000. His eyes widened. "That's not $800,000, I interrupted. "I paid for your wedding. I paid your down payment. I paid your mortgage for 5 years. I've transferred $2,500 every month for over a decade. I've covered emergencies that weren't emergencies. And when I asked, not demanded, asked for a little independence from you, I became the bad guy. Don't you see something wrong with that?" He shook his head. "It's not just about the money, Mom. You changed. You became different. Colder. More distant." I laughed. A short, bitter sound that escaped without permission. "I became different because I got tired, son. I got tired of giving and giving and giving without so much as a sincere thank you. I got tired of being seen as a solution instead of a person. I got tired of existing only to serve." Jack leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "Mom, I understand you're upset, but you can't just cut us off like this. We have obligations. The mortgage payment is due next week. Emma's school tuition. Things don't work without your help." And there it was, the naked truth, brutal and honest. He wasn't here because he missed me. He wasn't here because he cared about my pain. He was here because his financial world was collapsing. Because without me, the numbers didn't add up. Because he needed me. But not as a mother, as a bank. I stood up. "Jack," I said quietly, "you are a 40-year-old man with a good job and an income. If you can't pay your mortgage without me, then you bought a house you couldn't afford. And that is not my problem. It's yours." He stood too, his face flushed red. "Are you really going to do this? You're just going to abandon us, your own son, your grandchildren." I walked to the door, opened it wide. "I'm not abandoning you, Jack. I'm freeing you. You're going to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. And I'm going to learn to live without carrying other people's worlds on my back." He stared at me in disbelief, as if he couldn't process that his mother, his sweet, submissive mother, was telling him no. "This isn't over," he said, walking toward the door. "Jennifer is furious. Mia, too. We're going to have to talk about this as a family." "I'll be here," I said simply. He left without another word. I closed the door behind him, leaned my back against the wood. My legs were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. But I had done it. I had said no to my son. And I had survived. The roof didn't fall in. The world didn't end. It just changed. And that change, though terrifying, felt right. It felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. That evening around 7, there was a soft knock at my door. I opened it to find Mia standing there, alone. No David, no kids. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. "Mom," she said, her voice small. "Can we talk?" I let her in. We sat in the kitchen. I made tea. She didn't touch hers, just wrapped her hands around the mug, staring into it like she could find answers in the steam. "Mom, Jack told me what happened. This is insane. You can't do this to us." I waited. Let her continue. I know you're upset, she said, but think about the kids, what this means for them. They need their grandmother. Mia, I said gently, I love my grandchildren, but you and David are their parents. You're responsible for providing for them, not me. I already raised my children. I did my part. Now it's your turn. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. And what about us? Don't we matter? 15 years of being a family mean nothing. I leaned across the table. Mia, tell me something. When was the last time you called me just to ask how I was? Not to ask for money. Not to ask me to babysit. Just to talk. When her silence was the answer, she looked down, swallowed hard. Mom, that's not fair. You know we're busy. Life is complicated. I stood up. Exactly, honey. Life is complicated for everyone, including me. But no one ever asked if I was busy too, if I was tired too, if I needed help too. You all just assumed Mom would always be there, wallet open, arms open, no matter what. Mia stood too. Her face was flushed with anger or shame or both. This is cruel, Mom. Really cruel. I looked at my daughter, my baby, the one who used to hug me every night before bed, the one who told me I was her hero, and now she was calling me cruel for refusing to be used anymore. Do you know what's cruel, Mia? I said, my voice trembling. Cruel is realizing your children only seek you out when they need something. Cruel is seeing a green thumbs up celebrating your exclusion. Cruel is working until you're 72 to support lives that aren't yours while your own life is consumed. That's what's cruel. She grabbed her purse. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. When you've calmed down, we'll talk. She left, closing the door a little too hard, and I stood there in my kitchen surrounded by silence that no longer scared me. 2 weeks passed, 2 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, no visits. It was as if they'd erased me from their lives. And strangely, it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. The space gave me room to breathe, to think, to remember who Victoria was before she became Mom the ATM. I started painting, took a watercolor class at the senior center, made friends with a woman named Dorothy who was 75 and had traveled to 40 countries. I went to the doctor for a full checkup, something I'd avoided for 3 years because I couldn't afford it after paying everyone else's bills. I called old friends I'd neglected, discovered they were still there waiting for me. Life didn't end when my children abandoned me. It began. Then on a Saturday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Jack. Mom, we need to talk. All of us together. Saturday at 4 p.m. at your place. It's important. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I replied, okay. I spent the days before preparing. Not emotionally, that was already settled. I prepared with evidence. I took out the gray folder, reviewed every document, every receipt, every transfer. If they wanted a family meeting, they would get one. But on my terms. Saturday arrived. At 4 o'clock sharp, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find all of them standing there. Jack and Jennifer, Mia and David, even Amy Jennifer's sister who had never been to my apartment before. A full audience. They filed in silently, sat in my living room, all of them looking at me like I was on trial, and they were the jury. Jack spoke first. Mom, this situation has become unsustainable. Jennifer and I have talked with Mia and David. We think you need to understand the damage you're causing. Damage, that word, as if I were the destroyer. Go on, I said calmly, my hands folded in my lap, not shaking, not afraid. Jennifer took over. Victoria, we understand you're upset, but a family doesn't work this way. You can't just cut everything off because you had a bad day. The kids are asking for you. They want their grandmother, but you're turning your back on them. The kids. Always the kids, the perfect shield. May I speak now? I asked. They all nodded, as if giving me permission in my own home. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, got the gray folder, came back and placed it on the coffee table with a soft but firm sound. What is that? Mia asked. This, I replied, opening the folder, is every transfer I've made in 15 years. Every payment, every help, every emergency, all documented, all proven, all right here. I began laying out the papers, one by one, like cards in a poker game, like evidence in a trial. Jack, I said, looking directly at him, here is the receipt for the $40,000 I gave you for your down payment. I placed it on the table. Here are the monthly mortgage payments of $1,200 for 5 years. That's $72,000. Another stack of papers. Here are the monthly transfers of $2,500, $390,000 over 13 years. I turned to Mia. Here's the payment for your kitchen remodel, $3,000. David's coding boot camp, $2,500. The kids' tutoring, $36,000 accumulated over 6 years. More papers. Extra expenses, birthdays, Christmases, medical emergencies that weren't so urgent, $37,000 more. I looked at all of them, one by one. In total, in 15 years, I have given you $802,000. The silence was thick, heavy, suffocating. No one looked me in the eye. They only stared at the papers, at the evidence of their dependency. And that's not counting, I continued, the meals I paid for, the gifts, the times I babysat for free while you went on vacation to Cancun and Hawaii, the hours of my life I gave without expecting anything in return. I closed the folder. When I asked for a little independence from you, you called me selfish, negative, toxic. You kicked me out of a group chat and asked me to step back. I looked at each of them. Well, here I am, stepping back, just as you asked, but with my money, because it turns out the space you wanted included my absence, but not the absence of my wallet. And that is over. Jack tried to speak. Mom, we never... I cut him off. Something I had never done in my entire life. Yes, Jack, you did, and now you're going to learn to live without using me. Jennifer stood up. Her face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks. This is ridiculous. You're our mother. You're supposed to help us. That's what mothers are for. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who had smiled so sweetly 15 years ago, who had called me Mom Victoria with such warmth, who had taken $800,000 from me and was now calling me ridiculous for wanting it to stop. I laughed, a real laugh, liberating, from deep in my chest. No, Jennifer, mothers are for raising their children, for teaching them, for loving them, not for supporting them their entire lives. That's called parasitism, and I will no longer be the host. Mia was crying silently. David stared at the floor. Amy, Jennifer's sister, was looking at me with something that resembled respect. Jack stood up, his fists clenched, not in violence but in helplessness. So what are we supposed to do now? He demanded. How are we going to pay the mortgage? The kids' schools, everything. I looked at him without blinking. You're going to do what millions of people in the world do, Jack. You're going to work. You're going to adjust your budget. You're going to prioritize. You're going to live within your means, like responsible adults. Jennifer let out a hysterical laugh. Live within our means. Do you know how much everything costs these days? You can't just expect us to survive without help. I walked toward her slowly, calmly. Jennifer, you and Jack both have good jobs. You earn a combined income of over $150,000 a year. You can afford to live. Maybe not in a 4-bedroom house in Anthem. Maybe not with designer purses and Hawaiian vacations every year. Maybe not eating out 3 times a week. But live, yes. The problem isn't that you can't. It's that you don't want to. Because it's more comfortable to have me pay. Her face burned with shame and anger. She wanted to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Because she knew I was right. They all knew. Mia finally spoke, her voice broken. Mom, I get your point. I really do. But you can't expect us to change everything overnight. We need time, a transition plan. I shook my head. Mia, I have been your transition plan for 15 years. How much more time do you need until I die, until I have nothing left? Number of times up. The transition starts today. David spoke up, his voice hard, defensive. This is revenge, pure and simple, because you got your feelings hurt by a text message. I turned to him. David, it's not revenge, it's justice. And if you don't understand the difference, it's because you've never had to set a boundary in your life. Then Amy spoke, Jennifer's sister, the one who had never said a word this entire time. Victoria is right. Everyone turned to look at her. What it? Jennifer asked, her voice sharp with betrayal. Amy met her sister's eyes. You're right, Victoria, she repeated. I've seen how my sister and Jack depend on you. How every month there's a new emergency. How every holiday you're expected to cover everything. And I've seen you getting more tired, getting smaller. This had to happen, and I'm glad you finally did it." Jennifer stared at her sister like she'd been slapped. "How can you say that we're your family?" "Exactly," Amy said. "That's why I'm saying it, because I see how you're drowning in debt. How Jack works longer hours, but the money is never enough because you're living beyond your means. Victoria has been the Band-Aid, but Band-Aids don't last forever. They fall off. And when they do, you have to stitch the wound properly, not just put on another Band-Aid." Her words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples of discomfort, of truth that no one wanted to hear. Jack walked to the door. "This is pointless. We didn't come here to be lectured. We came to solve this." He turned to me one last time. "Mom, I'm giving you 1 week to reconsider. 1 week. After that, you're going to have to live with the consequences of pushing your family away." He opened the door. Jennifer followed him. Before leaving, she looked at me with pure contempt. "The kids are going to grow up without a grandmother. I hope your pride is worth it." They left. Mia and David stayed for a few more seconds. My daughter looked at me with pleading eyes. "Mom, please, think about it." Then they left too. Only Amy remained. We looked at each other in silence. She smiled, sad but genuine. "I'm sorry," she said. Why, I asked. Because I should have said something sooner, years ago when I saw how this was starting, but I thought it wasn't my place, that it was your family business. She came over and took my hand. "You did the right thing, Victoria. I know it hurts, but it was necessary." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you," I whispered, because that thank you, that acknowledgement, was worth more than all the dollars I had given. Amy left a few minutes later, and I was left alone in my apartment, surrounded by papers that proved my point, and a silence that no longer scared me. That night I didn't sleep well, not from regret, but from adrenaline, from the release of having said everything, of having shown everything, of having finally defended myself. I got up at 3 a.m, made chamomile tea, sat in the kitchen, and I cried. Not from sadness, from liberation. I cried for all the years I didn't defend myself, for all the times I swallowed my words, for all the times I said yes when I wanted to scream no. I cried until there were no tears left. The following days were absolute silence. No one called. No one wrote. It was as if they had erased me from existence. And strangely, it didn't bother me the way I thought it would. The silence gave me space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to remember who Victoria Morrison was before she became an ATM with a heartbeat. I woke up each morning without dread. No manufactured emergencies waiting in my inbox. No frantic calls about crises that required immediate cash infusions. Just peace. Strange, unfamiliar peace. On the 3rd day after the family meeting, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I signed up for a painting class. The Phoenix Senior Center offered watercolor lessons on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, $12 per session. I'd driven past the building 100 times, always thinking someday. Someday had arrived. The classroom smelled like paint and possibility. 8 easels arranged in a semicircle. 7 other women all around my age chatting and laughing as they set up their supplies. "You must be Victoria," said a woman with silver hair pulled back in a braid. "I'm Dorothy. First time, I confirmed, suddenly nervous. "I haven't painted since high school." "Oh, honey, neither had I," Dorothy laughed. "I started 3 months ago. Turns out you're never too old to be terrible at something new." The other women laughed. Warm, welcoming. Not a single one of them asked me for money. Our instructor, a patient woman named Clara, taught us to paint sunsets. "Don't overthink it," she said. "Let the colors flow. Orange into pink into purple. There's no wrong way." I dipped my brush into cadmium orange, touched it to the wet paper, watched the color bloom and spread like fire across the white surface. For 2 hours I didn't think about Jack, or Jennifer, or the $800,000. I just painted. When I finished, I had created something that looked almost like a sunset. The colors bled together in ways I hadn't intended, creating unexpected beauty in the chaos. "That's lovely," Dorothy said, looking over my shoulder. "You've got a good eye for color." I looked at my painting, really looked at it. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in 15 years, I'd created something instead of just giving things away. After class, Dorothy invited me for coffee. We sat at a small cafe near the senior center. She ordered a cappuccino. I got chamomile tea. So, she said, stirring sugar into her foam, what brings you to painting class? You have that look? What look? The look of someone starting over. I smiled sadly. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. Dorothy took a sip of her coffee. I started painting after my husband died. Needed something that was just mine. No one else's grief. No one else's expectations. Just me and the colors. I'm sorry about your husband. Don't be. He had a good life. We had 52 years together. She set down her cup. But you're not running from death, are you? You're running from the living. I don't know why, but I told her everything. The whole story, the money, the group chat, the green thumbs up, the family meeting, the folder of evidence. Dorothy listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Good for you, she said simply. Good for me, I repeated, surprised. I just cut off my own children. No, Dorothy corrected. You set a boundary. There's a difference. And boundaries are how we survive our families. She pulled out her phone, showed me a photo of a beautiful house on a lake. See this? My son wanted me to sell it and split the money with him. Said I was being selfish keeping such a big house when he and his family were struggling in their 3-bedroom rental. What did you do? I told him no. He didn't speak to me for 2 years. Dorothy smiled. But you know what? Those were the most peaceful 2 years of my life. And when he finally came back different. Respectful. Because he realized I wasn't a resource. I was a person. Did it hurt, the 2 years of silence? Like hell, Dorothy admitted. But living the rest of my life as his personal bank would have hurt more. We became friends after that. Dorothy introduced me to the other women in the painting class, to Margaret's book club, to Susan's walking group that met every Saturday morning at the park. Suddenly my calendar filled up with activities that had nothing to do with anyone else's problems. Tuesday and Thursday painting, Wednesday book club, Saturday walking group, Sunday farmer's market with Dorothy. I was busier than I'd been in years, but it was a different kind of busy, the kind that filled me up instead of emptying me out. 2 weeks after the family meeting, I went to the doctor for my long overdue checkup. Dr. Patel had been my physician for 8 years. A kind woman in her 50s with gentle hands and a direct manner. She did the full workup: blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, EKG. When she came back with the results, she was frowning. Victoria, your blood pressure is dangerously high. Have you been taking your medication? I looked down at my hands. I've been rationing it, to save money. Rationing blood pressure medication. Her voice was sharp with concern. Victoria, you could have a stroke. This is serious. I know, but I had other expenses. Family expenses. Had she caught the past tense? I told her a condensed version. She listened, her expression shifting from concern to something that looked like anger. So you were choosing between your health and your children's comfort. Put that way, it sounded insane. I'm their mother, I said weakly. You're also a person, Dr. Patel said firmly. A person who deserves to take care of herself. Promise me you'll take your full medication from now on. No rationing. I promise. She wrote me a prescription, then paused. Victoria, I see this a lot. Women your age who've spent their whole lives taking care of everyone else, who think their own health comes last. She met my eyes. But you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't help anyone if you're dead from a preventable stroke. I left the doctor's office with my prescription and something else. Permission. Permission to put myself first. Permission to survive. 3 weeks after my decision, my phone rang. Unknown number. Arizona area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Victoria, a young voice. Nervous. Quiet. My heart stopped. Yes, who is this? It's Emma. Grandma, it's Emma. Emma, Jack's daughter, my oldest grandchild. 16 years old now. Emma, sweetheart, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I needed to talk to you, without my parents knowing. I sat down, my legs suddenly weak. What's wrong, honey? She took a shaky breath. I know what happened. I heard my parents talking, well, yelling, about the money, about you, and Grandma. I need you to know something. Pause. I don't agree with them. Those 5 words hit me like a physical force. "What did you hear exactly?" I managed to ask. "Everything." Her voice was small but steady. "That you stopped giving them money. That Dad is desperate because he can't pay the mortgage without your help. That Mom says you're selfish. That they're thinking about selling the house." Another pause. "And Grandma, I think you're right." I couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down my face. My 16-year-old granddaughter understood what her parents couldn't see. "Why do you say that?" I whispered. "Because I've been watching how they treat you for years." Emma's voice grew stronger. "Every time you come over, they only talk about money, about problems, about things they need. They never ask how you are. They never really thank you." She sniffled. I could tell she was crying too. "I noticed, but I didn't know what to do. I thought that's just how families were. But now I understand it's not. It's wrong. Emma, honey, I don't want you to get in trouble with your parents because of this." She laughed, a bitter sound too old for 16. "Grandma, I'm already in trouble. I told them they were wrong, that you're not the bad guy. And Mom grounded me. She took my phone. I'm calling from my friend Kayla's phone." My heart broke a little more. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," she said firmly. "Because someone has to tell you the truth, that you're not crazy, that you're not bad, that what you did was brave." We talked for an hour. Emma told me things I'd never known, how Jack and Jennifer fought constantly about money, how they'd maxed out 3 credit cards trying to maintain their lifestyle, how they always expected me to solve everything. She told me that her younger brother Tommy, who was 10, had said last week, "If Grandma doesn't give us money, what do we need her for?" And no one had corrected him. No one had explained that you don't love people for what they give. You love them for who they are. "Grandma," Emma said before we hung up, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart." "Can I still see you, like maybe we could get coffee or something? Just us." My heart swelled. I would love that more than anything. "Next Saturday there's a Starbucks near my school. I could meet you after my shift at the bookstore." "You have a job?" "Yeah, I've been working part-time, saving for college. Mom and Dad don't know. They'd want me to give them the money." Smart girl. "Next Saturday," I confirmed. "Text me the address from Kayla's phone." "I will. I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, Emma. So much." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and cried. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of hope. Because Emma had given me something precious. Validation. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. That the dynamic was real and wrong. And more than that, she'd given me a connection to the next generation. Maybe I'd lost Jack and Jennifer. Maybe things with Mia were still broken. But Emma saw the truth. And that was 4 weeks after my decision. On a Thursday morning, my doorbell rang. I was getting ready for painting class. Brush in hand, canvas bag packed. Through the peephole, I saw Mia. Alone. No David, no kids. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in his messy ponytail. She'd lost weight. I opened the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her voice was small, defeated. I nodded and stepped aside. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where we'd had coffee that terrible day at Starbucks. But this time felt different. I made coffee. She wrapped her hands around the mug but didn't drink. "Mom," she said finally, not meeting my eyes. "I came to talk, for real, without David, without Jack. Just me." I waited. She looked up. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You were right. About everything." Those 4 words. I'd waited weeks to hear them. "We've been leeches," she continued, her voice breaking. "Ungrateful. Entitled. And the worst part is we didn't even realize it until you stopped." I reached across the table, took her hand. "Mia." "No, let me finish, please." She took a shaky breath. "David and I did the math, for real. We sat down with all our bank statements and we saw how much you've given us. How many times you've been there." She wiped her eyes with her free hand. "And then we wrote down how many times we've been there for you. Mom, the answer is almost never." She listed them, each one a tiny knife wound. "We didn't call you on your birthday last year. We didn't visit when you had your gallbladder removed. We weren't there on the 5-year anniversary of Dad's death. We forgot Mother's Day. Twice." Her voice cracked completely. We only showed up when we needed something, money or babysitting or help moving furniture. And the worst part? We convinced ourselves that was normal, that you existed to give and we existed to take. I squeezed her hand. Mia, I appreciate you seeing this. I really do. But you understand I can't go back to how things were, right? She nodded vigorously. I know, and I'm not here to ask you to. I'm here to apologize, and to tell you we're going to be okay. What do you mean? David got a promotion. Better pay, better hours. We're moving to a smaller place, a 2-bedroom apartment in Tempe. It's not fancy, but we can afford it on our own. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. We're cutting expenses. No more eating out. No more expensive vacations. The kids are going to public school next year instead of private. We're selling my car and sharing David's. That's a lot of change. It's necessary change, she said firmly. We've been living beyond our means for years, using you as a safety net. And that was wrong. So wrong. She started crying again. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything, for taking advantage, for not seeing you as a person, for treating you like an ATM, I finished softly. She nodded miserably. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I stood up, walked around the table, and pulled my daughter into a hug. She sobbed into my shoulder, deep, racking sobs that shook her whole body. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I know, baby, I know. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her face with a napkin. What about Jack? I asked. She shook her head. Jack is struggling. Jennifer is furious. They're talking to lawyers about forcing a refinance without you as co-signer. They're blaming you for everything. And you? I'm standing here, apologizing, trying to fix what I broke. She met my eyes. I can't control Jack, but I can control me, and I want a real relationship with you, Mom. Not one based on money, based on real love. I touched her cheek. Then we'll build that, starting now. It won't be easy, she warned. The worthwhile things never are. Before she left, Mia hugged me again. Can I visit next week? Maybe bring the kids, they miss you. I'd like that. And Mom, no agenda, no asking for anything, just family. Just family, I repeated. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. One child lost, one child found. It wasn't the ending I'd hoped for, but it was better than I'd feared. And it was real. I met Arthur one morning at the farmer's market. Dorothy had dragged me there, insisting I needed to try the fresh peaches from a vendor she knew. I was examining tomatoes when someone spoke beside me. The heirlooms are better, more flavor. I turned to find a man about my age. 75, maybe. Silver hair, kind eyes, a gentle smile. Arthur, he introduced himself, extending his hand. Victoria. We talked about tomatoes, then peaches. Then somehow we were having coffee at a small cafe talking about everything. Arthur was a widower. His wife had died 3 years ago after a long battle with cancer. The grief doesn't get smaller, he said, stirring his coffee. You just get bigger around it. Learn to carry it better. Robert died 9 years ago, I said. Heart attack. One day he was here, the next he wasn't. That must have been terrible. It was, but in some ways the slow grief is worse. Watching someone disappear piece by piece. He nodded. The worst part is learning to live alone. After 53 years of partnership, suddenly you're making all the decisions by yourself. We talked for 2 hours. About loss, about loneliness, about the strange freedom that comes after. When we finally stood to leave, he asked if I'd like to have dinner sometime. Nothing romantic, he clarified quickly. Just 2 people who understand. I smiled. I'd like that. Dinner became a regular thing. Twice a week, Arthur and I would meet. Sometimes at restaurants. Sometimes we'd cook together at his house or mine. He told me about his son who'd drained his savings with bad investments, how he'd had to learn to say no, how it had cost him a relationship but saved his retirement. I lost him for 2 years, Arthur said one evening over spaghetti carbonara. Didn't speak, didn't visit. It nearly killed me. What happened? He hit rock bottom. Lost everything in a failed business venture. Came to me expecting I'd bail him out again. Arthur set down his fork. I told him no. Told him I loved him, but I wouldn't enable him anymore. How did he react? He left angry, but 6 months later he came back. Different. He'd gotten a job, found a therapist, started rebuilding his life on his own terms. Arthur smiled. Now we have a real relationship, based on respect, not money. It took losing him to find him. His story gave me hope. Maybe Jack would come around. Maybe not. But either way, I'd survive. Arthur and I weren't romantic. We were companions. We went to movies, walked in the park, played Scrabble, and argued good-naturedly about whether key was a real word. He made me laugh. I made him think. We filled the lonely spaces in each other's lives without demanding more than the other could give. It was the healthiest relationship I'd had in years. 6 weeks after my decision, Emma and I met at Starbucks. She was waiting at a corner table, backpack at her feet, a nervous smile on her face. I hugged her tight. She smelled like teenage perfume and coffee. "Hi, Grandma." "Hi, sweetheart." We ordered drinks. She got some complicated frappuccino with extra whipped cream. I got my usual chamomile tea. For an hour we just talked. About school, about her job at the bookstore, about a boy named Tyler who'd asked her to homecoming. Normal things. Grandmother-granddaughter things. No mention of money or drama or family conflict. Just us. "Grandma," she said finally, pulling something from her backpack. "I have something for you." She handed me an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was $500. 5 crisp $100 bills. My birthday gift to her from 2 years ago. The money she'd barely acknowledged when I'd given it. "Emma, what?" "It's the money you gave me for my 16th birthday." She said, her voice steady, but her eyes wet. "I saved it. Didn't spend it." "Honey, that was a gift. You don't have to—" "Please let me finish." She took a breath. "When you gave me that money, I didn't even thank you properly. I just took it. Like it was normal. Like you were supposed to give me money." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was so used to receiving from you that I didn't even see it as special. I thought it was just what you did. But now I understand nothing you gave was normal. It was sacrifice. It was love. And I didn't value it." She pushed the envelope toward me. "So I'm giving it back. Not because I don't need it, I do, but because I need you to know that I get it now, that I see you, that I value you, as a person, not as a wallet." My own tears were falling now. Emma. "The best gift you ever gave me wasn't money, Grandma. It's this lesson. Seeing you be strong. Teaching me that real love has boundaries. That's priceless." She stood up, came around the table, and hugged me. "Please keep it," she whispered. "Or use it on yourself. On something that makes you happy. Because you deserve it." I held my granddaughter and cried into her hair. 16 years old, and she understood what her parents couldn't learn in 40. She'd absorbed in weeks what they'd refused to see in decades. The lesson I'd taken 72 years to learn. That self-love isn't selfish. It's survival. When we finally pulled apart, Emma wiped her eyes. "I have to go. Mom thinks I'm at the library studying." "When can I see you again?" "Next Saturday, same time." "I'll be here." She hugged me once more, grabbed her backpack, and left. I sat there for a long time looking at the envelope. $500. A tiny fraction of what I'd given, but worth more than all of it combined. Because it came with understanding, with recognition, with love that asked for nothing in return. 8 weeks after my decision, I woke up on a Saturday morning with the sun streaming through my bedroom window. The Arizona sky was impossibly blue. The kind of blue that makes you grateful to be alive. I stretched in bed. My body ached less than it had in years. The new blood pressure medication was working. My sleep was deeper. My mind was clearer. I checked my phone out of habit. A text from Mia. "Mom, the kids want to visit tomorrow. Can we bring brunch? No agenda, just family." A text from Emma. "Movie next Saturday, your choice. My treat." A text from Dorothy. "Painting class is doing a field trip to Sedona next month. You in?" A text from Arthur. "Dinner tonight, I'm making that chicken piccata you liked." I looked at these messages, these connections, these people who wanted my company, not my money, and I smiled. I got up, made coffee, and sat on my small balcony. The air smelled like desert flowers and fresh starts. I thought about the past 15 years, the $800,000, the sacrifices, the pain. And I thought about the past 8 weeks, the freedom, the boundaries, the reclamation of self. If I could go back, would I change anything? The answer surprised me. No, because I needed to lose myself to find myself. I needed to give everything away to learn that I was worth keeping something for. I needed to be treated like an ATM to understand that I was a person. The pain had been necessary. The loss had been essential. It was the price of my education in self-worth. Later that morning, I went to my painting class. We were working on landscapes now. Dorothy was attempting the Grand Canyon. I was trying to capture the Arizona sunset. "You're getting really good at this," Clara said, looking at my canvas. "I'm learning to see color differently," I replied. "To notice the gradients, the way orange becomes pink becomes purple." "That's not just painting," Clara smiled. "That's life." She was right. Life wasn't black and white. It was gradients, transitions, one color bleeding into another, creating something unexpected and beautiful. I'd spent so many years in the dark colors, the grays and browns of obligation and guilt. Now I was learning to paint in oranges and pinks and purples, the colors of sunrise, of new beginnings, of hope. That evening I had dinner with Arthur. He'd made chicken piccata with lemon and capers. We ate on his back patio watching the sun set over the desert. "I got an email from my son today," he said, refilling my wine glass. "Good news. He and his wife are expecting a baby girl. They want to name her after my late wife." "Arthur, that's wonderful." He smiled, but his eyes were sad. "It is, but it's also complicated, because I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of falling back into old patterns, of them expecting me to be the bank again, of losing these years of peace I've worked so hard for." I understood completely. "What did you say to him?" "I said congratulations, that I'm honored about the name, and that when the baby comes I'd love to babysit. To be a real grandfather, not a checkbook." "How did he respond?" "He said that's all he wanted, that he's learned his lesson." Arthur looked at me. "I want to believe him." "Then believe him, but verify. Trust, but keep your boundaries." He clinked his wine glass against mine. "To boundaries. To boundaries." Sunday morning, Mia arrived with David and the kids. They brought bagels and cream cheese and fresh fruit. The kids ran to hug me. Real hugs, not the quick, obligatory kind. "Grandma, we missed you," 7-year-old Sophie squealed. "I missed you too, sweetheart." We ate breakfast on my small balcony. It was crowded 5 people in a space meant for 2, but it was perfect. Mia helped me clean up afterward. We stood side by side at the sink, washing dishes in comfortable silence. "Mom," she said finally, "I want you to know something." "What's that?" "The past 2 months have been hard, really hard. We've had to cut so much, change so much." She handed me a plate to dry. "But they've also been the best 2 months of our marriage. David and I are communicating again, making decisions together. The kids are learning that they can't have everything they want. And we're learning that we're stronger than we thought." She turned to face me. "You didn't just set us free financially. You set us free emotionally. We were drowning and didn't even know it." I hugged her soapy hands and all. "I'm proud of you, Mia." "I'm proud of you too, Mom, for having the courage to do what we couldn't." 3 months after my decision, I sat down to write in a journal Dorothy had given me. Brown leather, blank pages, a ribbon bookmark. "For your new chapter," she'd said. I opened to the first page and wrote, "Today I begin my real life. Not the life others designed for me, not the life of serving and disappearing, but my life, Victoria's life. A 72-year-old woman who finally learned that existing is enough, that I don't have to earn my place in the world by giving away pieces of myself. I lost my son, maybe forever, maybe just for now, but I gained myself. I lost $800,000, but I found peace. I lost the illusion of a perfect family, but I discovered what real family looks like, chosen, respectful, reciprocal. Emma visits me every Saturday. We talk about books and boys and her dreams for college. Mia calls me twice a week, just to talk, no agenda. Dorothy and I are planning a trip to Sedona next month. Arthur makes me laugh every Tuesday and Friday. My blood pressure is under control for the first time in 5 years. I painted 3 sunsets this week, each one better than the last. This is not the end. It's the beginning. And for the first time in decades, I'm excited about what comes next. I closed the journal and looked out my window. The Arizona sun was setting, orange and pink and purple, just like my paintings. A text came through, from Emma. Grandma, guess what? I got into the honors program at ASU. Thank you for always believing in me. Love you. I smiled and typed back, I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You did this all on your own. Love you too. Another text, from an unknown number. I hesitated, then opened it. Mom, it's Jack. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I wanted you to know I started seeing a therapist. Jennifer and I are working on things. No promises about us, but I'm working on me. That's all I can do right now. I stared at that message for a long time. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was a start. I typed back, I'm proud of you for doing that work. I'm here when you're ready. No conditions, just love. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then thank you. I set down my phone and walked out to my balcony. The air was cooling as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. The desert was turning from gold to purple to deep blue. Somewhere in Phoenix, my son was sitting in a therapist's office trying to figure out who he was without me as his safety net. Somewhere my daughter was making dinner with her husband, living within their means, building something real. Somewhere my granddaughter was studying for her SATs, dreaming of a future she'd build with her own hands. And here in my small apartment overlooking a parking lot, I was standing on my own balcony, breathing my own air, living my own life. For the first time in 15 years, I belonged to myself. I thought about Robert, wondered what he'd say if he could see me now. I think he'd be proud, not of the conflict, not of the pain, but of the courage, of the boundary, of the woman who finally learned that she mattered too. A gentle knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Arthur holding a bottle of wine and wearing a sheepish smile. I know it's last minute, but I thought you might like company for the sunset. I smiled and stepped aside. I'd love that. We sat on my balcony, 2 chairs crammed into a space meant for one watching the Arizona sky turn impossible colors. To new beginnings, Arthur said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, I echoed. We clinked glasses and drank to the future. A future that was mine. Finally, completely unapologetically mine.